Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Inside the Force. This is episode 368. I'm Dave Cottingham, your host, running solo again this week. But no biggie. I'm here to run down all the Star Wars news, talk about some upcoming releases, and, of course, hit on some topics. One main topic that I'm going to get into on this episode later on is getting ready for Andor. There's definitely some things out there I think that, being about a month out, we can revisit and watch, or maybe it's the first time you're watching it. But I'll throw out some suggestions on things like that to watch. I'm actually doing some rewatching of myself, which not of myself, but rewatching myself, and I will talk about what I'm rewatching, which is pretty neat because after it's been a while, it's pretty neat to go back and watch something, especially if you've only seen it one time. First off, though, again, thanks to my patrons for continued support. Got some interesting things in the works right now, and I know we're pumping out some more content. Finally finished up the Star Wars series, the comic series. Me and Hannah did on Beyond the Saga over there. I know our patrons have gotten that early released before it came on this airwaves, though. So anyway, a lot of things in the works that's gonna maybe be modified too about that. But again, can't thank them enough, especially my master patrons over there, Thrawn Addict and Huang. So thank you, and we'll keep moving on and talking about Star Wars. This past week, it looks like in anticipation for Disney Plus Day, which I had talked about earlier on some previous shows, which is coming September 8th. There are some releases that Disney is putting out on Disney Plus that day. Some notable things like the live-action Pinocchio is going to be launched then. Thor: Love and Thunder will be on there as well. Another episode of She-Hulk, which is currently running right now. But Star Wars-wise, the only thing we know about right now is there is a new documentary about the Obi-Wan series. Now, there's a lot of people I think I saw on Twitter, especially, that was very upset with the posts that Star Wars was doing the other day when they announced it, because if you look at the poster and, of course, the way that they messaged the posts, it seemed like this was a announcement of a season 2 for Obi-Wan. I mean, the documentary is titled A Jedi's Return. So it looked like season 2 is almost going to be pretty much marketed as Obi-Wan Kenobi, A Jedi's Return. So I remember I just saw a lot of people replying like, oh my gosh, I thought this was season 2. This is so disappointing now. But no, it's not season 2. We probably will get a season 2, but it's definitely not going to be out yet. So this is the documentary for it. I'm not sure why it's not a Disney Gallery, which is what they've been doing these behind the scenes for, like with Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. But it doesn't say it's a Disney Gallery. It just says it's its own little documentary about the behind the scenes Obi-Wan. So yeah, I'll definitely check that out on September 8th. But that's coming to Disney Plus on Disney Plus Day. New books were announced, and both were related to Cal Kestis and the Jedi Fallen Order series. One is the artwork. It's going to be The Art of Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Now, Jedi Survivor is the sequel to Fallen Order, the video game. So there is going to be a book called The Art of Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which is the artwork of the game, published by Dark Horse, and that will be out on May 2nd of 2023. Now, keep in mind, Jedi Survivor has not been announced what that release date is for that. So I'm guessing, since they announced the book to be May 2nd, it's got to be out somewhere around that time. So could be a May the 4th release. Not sure, but I would venture the game would come out before the book does. So maybe it's going to be in early April, mid-April, something like that. But I anticipate that game coming out before that book does. And then there is actually, again, before I think with the game comes out, there is an actual novel coming out that takes place between the two games. So what we've heard is that the game Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor, there's 5 years in between those games. This novel takes place between those two games, and it's called Jedi Survivor. I'm sorry, it's called Jedi Battle Scars. So Star Wars Jedi Battle Scars, written by Sam Maggs, and it just says a new novel from Del Rey finds Order 66 survivor Cal Kestis leading the Mantis crew on an adventure set between the critically acclaimed Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and the highly anticipated Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And this comes out March 7th, 2023. So again, I think the game is going to come out between that and between the Art of book. So I would guess maybe April, maybe early April. Just throwing it out there. So that's cool. KOTOR remake, the Knights of the Old Republic remake, apparently that has been officially announced that it's been moved over to a different studio. And the rumor is right now that it will not cause a delay in the release of the game, even though we don't know the release, which has been rumored to be by the end of the year. Could still happen. We'll see. I don't know. Again, I haven't been too big of a KOTOR player, not really at all actually. So it just depends on what type of game it is for me. If I'm gonna really get into it. So I just can't wait to see more of it. And of course, since Andor has been moved back to being released on September 21st with a 3-episode premiere, there were rumors and possibly a leak out there that maybe the Bad Batch season 2 was going to debut in September as well. Well, Lucasfilm had never released the date. Their trailer that they put out, Star Wars Celebration only said fall. So technically fall doesn't start until September 21st. And so it could be October, November, which makes more sense. Andor will finish up in November, so I would anticipate the Bad Batch starting sometime right after the Andor series ends. I don't think they're going to run it together. If they do, it might just be the first couple of weeks, but I just don't see them doing that. I don't see them writing a 12-episode Andor series and trying to keep the momentum of that series and the attention on that series and then debut Bad Batch while that series is going on. I just don't see it happening. So I don't think we're going to get Bad Batch till, late November, maybe even early December. Because again, Bad Batch, I believe Andor ends the week of Thanksgiving. That's for all of you in the States. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, so it does end November 23rd, which is the day before Thanksgiving here in the States. So yeah, I would be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Bad Batch doesn't start, maybe a couple weeks after that, like maybe December 7th or the 14th or something like that. So, which would be fine because that would give it a, 3, 7. Yeah, it'd give it pretty good run through February, March, I guess, before season 3 of Mandalorian starts. So I don't know. It's kind of squeezing it in there, depending on how many episodes we're getting of season 2 of Bad Batch, I guess. Maybe it's not 16. Maybe it's less. But if it is, then there will be some overlap possibly with some of these live action series. But we just don't know when yet. And again, just a reminder, Andor drops September 21st with 3 episodes. Pretty awesome. Okay, I think this episode of Inside the Force is going to be a little shorter, which is fine, because I can't believe you guys really even, hopefully you guys are listening to me all the way through, but I really don't want to have you guys listen to me too much and get sick of me. Novels. So Princess and the Scoundrel just came out, like I said, last week. We talked about that a little bit last week. Looking forward to really diving into that book. I bought it on the bookshelf the other day, so I got it here also. But, I only do this for, I only buy the books for shelf decoration. I actually don't sit and read these novels. I listen to them, so I've got the audiobook as well, so I'm going to be diving into that very soon, because I'm finishing up Into the Dark, the High Republic novel from Claudia Gray. Almost finished with that, so I'm going to finish that and then dive into The Princess and the Scoundrel. Looking forward to that. Okay, next novel that's going to be released starts off the High Republic, Phase 2, Path of Deceit, October 4th. Continues with Convergence on November 15th. And then the new novel on the list here, Star Wars Jedi Battle Scars, comes out March 7th. And then Phase 2 of the High Republic ends with Path of Vengeance on May 2nd. Comics. Today. Darth Vader 26, Dr. Aphra 23. Next week, Obi-Wan Kenobi number 4. September 7th, you've got Star Wars 27. September 14th, Bounty Hunters 27, Obi-Wan Kenobi number 5. September 21st, the day Andor debuts, you've got Darth Vader 27 and The Mandalorian number 3. And then finishing in September on the 28th, you've got Dr. Aphra 24 and Han Solo and Chewbacca number 6. Okay, so there you go. Those are your releases on your publishing side, novels and comics. Okay, so what I want to talk about a little bit right here on this final topic here is really some Andor things as we get ready for this premiere here in a few weeks. Just kind of want to go, I'm going to go back and, watch some things to kind of refresh my memory. I'm actually doing a rewatch right now of Star Wars Rebels, which I'm going to probably do some more video on. I'm trying to figure out what platform to put it on, because I'm not going to put it on the podcast. I'll probably just put it on YouTube and Patreon or something like that. Still trying to think about that, but I'm rewatching it with my daughter, my 12-year-old daughter, who is a huge Ahsoka fan, but she's a huge Rebels fan. She's getting back into it because a couple years ago when she was a little younger, I had shown her some episodes, really the ones about the Mandalore and about Ahsoka, just because to get her ready for the Mandalorian. We watched some of those, and things about Maul and Ezra and things like that. Not really, we never sat down and just watched them all. So we're doing that now. We started with season 1. I think we're just starting into season 2 right now. Love the series. I mean, I had watched Rebels when they were released, on television on Disney. I think it's Disney XD at the time. and watched those each week as they came out. And to be honest, I don't think I watched them beyond that because I didn't have, they weren't online yet. I bought the Blu-rays, I believe, when the seasons came out, but I may have popped in one or two. I never watched them all the way through like I would have if I would have had them on, online or something. So it's been a long time since I've actually rewatched it. So really seeing some new perspectives of it, knowing what I know, and especially about other things like the Grand Inquisitor and Vader, and of course the Rebellion, with what we know from all these other shows and comics and books and stuff like that. So it's a different watch, but really enjoying it, especially with my daughter Sam. Okay, so what I want to kind of talk about is maybe going back and rewatching some things to get ready for Andor, season 1, which drops September 21st. What we've seen about Andor in these trailers so far is a couple prominent characters, not just Andor, ones that we know, and the two that we know of are main ones in a way, because I think there are going to be a few cameos. But the main ones, you've got Saul Guerrero and you've got Mon Mothma. So what I'm going to kind of list out is some kind of essential things I feel like mainly around those characters, because right now, obviously, Cassian, all we have is Rogue One. There is a one-shot comic called, I think it's called Cassian and K2SO, where it kind of, it's a comic about the two of them. I'm assuming it's canon, so that is definitely out there. Actually, that wasn't on my list, but I feel like I should mention that because it does, I believe it depicts, it's been a long time since I read it because I think it came out right after Rogue One. And yeah, it's called Cassian and K2SO. And so that's a book you guys should look up if you want to catch up on their story a little bit. I believe it doesn't completely, I'm gonna have to go back and reread this as well, but I believe it does show them meeting and their whole relationship, how it started and stuff like that, rewiring it, blah blah blah. So yes, so that's probably worth reading. I'm going to read that again probably. So that's probably a good one. I don't think, obviously K2, I think it's been said that he's not going to show up till season 2. So I'm curious if that book somewhat gets retconned because of what happens in the show. We've already seen that somewhat with the Bad Batch, when Order 66 happens with Caleb Doom and his master Balaba. That's a little different than what happened in the Kanan comic, right? Still same planet. I think it was called Collar. Same circumstances, but details and visuals are different. So that could happen with this book. The Cassian and K2 comic could be somewhat retconned because it may not look exactly or the exact thing may not happen in the series. But Alan Tudyk, who is the voice of K2, so I believe is coming back for season 2. So I believe K2 will be in it. How much, I don't know, depends. But I think he will be in it. So that's probably one of the first things you should maybe do is do the comic. for them, for Cassian. That's the only other Cassian really thing that we have, I believe, beyond Rogue One. So that comic. Now, if you want to talk about Saw Gerrera, go back to the Clone Wars if you want to revisit that, or if you haven't seen it yet. Particularly, obviously the first 4 seasons, you'll get a lot of stuff out of it, obviously from the Jedi point of view. There are a lot of episodes sprinkled in through the first 4 seasons regarding the politics, a little bit of what's happening. Obviously every planet or every system that either the Separatists or the Republic are trying to win over their loyalty, there's a lot of political ramifications that happen in the Clone Wars. And I think that's important because it's going to happen a lot in Andor as well. But if you want to get specific to some characters, specifically Saw Gerrera, you want to go to season 5. Early season 5 might be the second episode. I think the second, maybe through the 5th or 6th episode, where it takes place on a system called Andor, and that is where Saw Gerrera is from. So he is there fighting with his sister Steele, and they are getting trained up by Obi-Wan and Anakin. And it's a great 4-story arc, I think, 4-episode arc that really shows Saul's abilities and leadership skills, and a little bit about how he ends up being how he is, right? So it's pretty important. I think you might want to go check out the Clone Wars there with those episodes of Saul. And then the Bad Batch, which takes place right after episode 3, specifically, again, Aftermath, which is the first episode. First, I guess, kind of movie-ish. It's pretty long. It's like 70 minutes, which is awesome. But Saw Gerrera is in that as well. This is right when the Empire is kind of getting established. So it's really early on showing that, and knowing that they want to get Saw Gerrera out of the picture. So that's a good thing to go watch. Now, if you watch some other episodes of the Bad Batch, you'll probably get more. Definitely a more understanding of how the Empire was right after episode 3 and how they're starting to establish themselves. So that's what I really liked about the Bad Batch also. And then there is another novel out there called Rebel Rising that is Saw Gerrera and Jyn Erso. This is, nothing with Cassian, nothing with Andor, obviously, but it does depict the time between what you see at the beginning of Rogue One, which is the flashback of young Jyn, leading up to Rogue One, which is Jyn's storyline, but how it relates to Saul and his partisans, the people that follow him. So that's a really good book. It's by Beth Revis, obviously, who wrote the Princess and the Scoundrel book. So Rebel Rising, good book. Go check that out. The other thing now is continuing somewhat with Saul is Star Wars Rebels. Star Wars Rebels takes place during this Andor series, which, again, I think I've said this before, but I'm pretty convinced that what we're getting out of Andor is a live action version of Star Wars Rebels, in a sense. Not in the sense that we're going to get Jedi and stuff like that, because I don't think we're going to get any Jedi or any lightsabers in Andor. But what we are going to get is, a pack of rebel cells that are starting to disrupt the Empire, that are starting to build, cooperation between cells around the galaxy, and ultimately the beginning of the Rebel Alliance. I mean, the tagline for Andor is "The Rebellion Begins." So that's pretty much what happened in the Star Wars Rebels. The Rebel cells are all building up, and then eventually they come together and align. There are episodes in Rebels later on, season 3 and 4 that show some Saw Gerrera, and then a little bit of the tension between Saw Gerrera and Mon Mothma, who I'm going to talk about here in a second. But Saul is doing things in a very extremist way, and Mothma is trying to do it in a more political way. And that's where their ideals, start to clash. And you see that a little bit in Rebels, which is pretty cool. And then the other thing in Rebels is really Mon Mothma. She has only an episode or two, but it does explain. I mean, it's a big step, specifically what she does, which is basically announce her, disapproval of this of Palpatine and the way the Senate is structured. So she becomes the rebel leader pretty much in Star Wars Rebels. And after that announcement, basically forms the Rebel Alliance. So will we see something like that in Andor? Probably. May not be specifically that, but I do think that something from, and again, it could kind of retcon the show, but I don't think it will. I think we may get a glimpse of what she does in Star Wars Rebels. Probably in season 2 though. But to really kind of understand Mon Mothma, you can watch that. But ultimately, what you need to do is go back and watch the deleted scenes from episode 3. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there were about 5 or 6 scenes that were cut from episode 3 that had to deal with what was called the Delegation of 2000, which is the 2000 senators that have signed a petition to grant the Senate more of the power again, take power away from Palpatine. Of course, Palpatine never accepted it, but these meetings, with her, with Mothma, with Bail Organa, with Padme, with other senators, it was very much that discussion and how they needed to kind of keep it quiet and grow this thing slowly and, methodically behind closed doors. But it was, and the beauty of it, it's still Genevieve O'Reilly who's playing Mon Mothma. So it's the same character, same person playing the same character, which is phenomenal. But that was our first glimpse of Mon Mothma in the prequels, and our only glimpse. So I wish, again, I got to start hashtagging it out there. Hashtagging restore the Mothma scenes. That's what it is. Restore the Mothma scenes. Because I actually think that they need to be in the movie. I think they're pretty significant. I think it's pretty foreshadowing now, which is cool to see with Rebels out there, that these scenes matter to understanding Mothma and the character, and then ultimately what she does later on in Andor now, and in Rebels, and then ultimately the original trilogy. So, and hopefully we see her beyond the original trilogy, beyond Return of the Jedi. I kept thinking we get some glimpse of Mothma in The Mandalorian. We never did, so maybe we won't. But I think this is a good character to expand upon for reasons on why these rebels are following her. I think those are good questions. So that is the rundown. There's some episodes of Clone Wars, deleted scenes from episode 3, the first Bad Batch episode, Star Wars Rebels, mainly a little bit of season 3, and then season 4, and then Rebel Rising, and then the Cassian comic with K2 if you want to dive into that. So I think those are pretty cool things to catch up on, read up on before Andor gets to come out. I'm definitely gonna do that. I think I just recently watched those episode 3 deleted scenes. Unfortunately, the deleted scenes aren't all on Disney Plus. I think there's only 2 of them there if you go to episode 3 and then the extras. But you can get online on YouTube or something like that and search the deleted scenes and watch them all. Pretty good. They're actually pretty good. Okay, let's move on to read through some comments real fast and then wrap this show up. See, I'm not going to be that long on this one. Let's see. We did get a comment 2 episodes ago from Kimura. Kimura said, I like to think learning more on this. So this is when the episode was called The Practical Way, when I was kind of talking about practical sets versus the volume and, which one could be better and whatnot. So Kimura says, I like to think leaning more on practical effects over CGI makes the feel of it more Star Wars, at least for me. The thing I love about Rogue One is how much it feels like a return to the style of the original trilogy. I'm not one who thinks everything about the OT trumps everything else. I actually like the prequels a lot because I grew up with those and I love seeing the full Jedi in it, which is definitely a different feel about the OT that makes it Star Wars to me. I've had a similar gripe about the sequel trilogy. There's just parts of that are a bit too sneaky clean and loses some of that feel. Yeah, I think you're right, Kimura. I think that's very true with a lot of Star Wars fans. I do think that a lot. And Andor does seem like, yes, it does. That they've said that they didn't use the volume. They're going to use more practical. I think it's definitely going to look and feel differently than what we've seen in the other live action series. So I'm with you. I definitely think it's going to feel more like the original trilogy and feel more authentic and practical. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing how much that affects my viewing of it. So, and then of course, Thrawn Attic on that same episode says, love the idea of the book giveaway. Oh yeah, the book giveaway. Yeah, kind of follow up on that. Unfortunately, I already have Shadow of the Sith. It was a fantastic book and tied in really well with the sequel trilogy and made me appreciate the Rise of Skywalker more. Very true. I'm on the last episode of Light and Magic series. Absolutely fantastic and fascinating to see the evolution of movie making. It was. I knew a bit from watching Empire of Dreams. Yep, me too. But this went into way more detail and beyond Star Wars. So great to see. In regards to using or not using the volume, I don't really mind as long as it's a good story with interesting characters, and that is the main thing for me. But I do miss the movie feel sometimes and need a Star Wars movie. 100% agree. Need a Star Wars movie out there. Let's see. Moving on to last episode, roughly about Shadow of the Sith. That's where I had Hannah and Corey. Thrawn Addicts on here. Looking forward to continuing Charles Soule's comic trilogy. Really enjoyed War of the Bounty Hunters and just waiting for 23rd August for a whole volume of Crimson Reign. Yep, me too. Actually, I've got all the individual books I'm reading. I've read 4 of them. I think I just need to read the 5th one. He goes on to say, really excited for Yoda comic series. Yes, great character and got 800 years of story that you can choose from to tell. Reading Princess and the Scoundrel now, really great so far, and would love an in-depth spoiler discussion of that. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll do it then. Also says, great video, really happy you're doing in-depth spoiler review of this. Really love the book. Also appreciate the merch. They are fantastic, so thank you. Sweet. I want to follow up with you, Thrawn Addict, on that merch stuff because I'm really curious on how that stuff is. And then he says, cannot wait for movie commentaries and hoping to comment what's with your watching. Yes, we'll let you know. Working on that with Hannah right now. So that is very soon. Okay. That will do it. Thanks again for the feedback, and thanks again to my patrons that support the show. Gonna ramp up some new stuff here coming soon, and then of course keep a lookout for the Mandalore podcast, where me and Martin Donison will deep dive into all the Disney Plus shows, and obviously Andor coming up. We're going to be deep diving into that. So, look for that on the weekends after the show. And then, of course, come back here to YouTube to get more episodes of Beyond the Saga and Council Sessions and Master Dueler and Dark Knowledge. And most of those shows, if not all of them, will be on the podcast feed. So check out any of the podcast feeds and subscribe there to get access to all the shows. Thank you all again for coming back, and for those of you just joining, hope you come back. And can't wait for Andor. Gonna keep doing some rewatch, and hope you guys have a great rest of your week and weekend. Take care. See you next week. May the Force be with you.